The last door out of Israel just slammed shut. And nobody, and not Washington, not Tel Aviv, not the 100,000 Israelis stuck in airports across Europe right now, knows when it opens again dawn. March 5th. No warning, no diplomatic note, no 48-hour window. Iran didn't call ahead. They never do. At first light, Wave 19 of Operation True Promise 4 was already in the air. And this time, the target wasn't a radar installation in the desert or a military base nobody's heard of. It was Ben Gurion Airport, the single runway through which a nation of 9 million people breathes. Think about that for a second. 1 million passengers move through Ben Gurion every week in peacetime. Military reinforcements land there. Medical evacuations depart from there. Every supply chain Israel depends on flows through that tarmac. And on the morning of March 5th, Iran pointed its heaviest missiles directly at it. The weapon Iran chose for this was the Khorramshahr 4. And if you don't know that name yet, you need to, because this missile has a history that tells you everything about how Iran thinks about this war. Iran first unveiled the Khorramshahr missile series back in September 2017. The fourth generation, the one they fired this week, was unveiled in May 2023. Range of 2,000 kilometers, 13 meters long. And the warhead, 1,500 kilograms. That's not the weight of the whole missile. That's just the part designed to destroy whatever it hits. But here's what most people glossed over when Iran showed this thing to the world. The name. Khorramshahr. That's the city Iran lost to Iraq early in the Iran-Iraq war and then bled for years to get back. Every Iranian soldier knows that name. Every Iranian civilian knows what it cost. Iran didn't name its most powerful ballistic missile after a city by accident. They named it after the place that proved they would sacrifice everything for what they believed was worth holding. That name is a message. It always was. Now, Iran didn't just fire ballistic missiles at Ben Gurion. They sent Shahed 136 suicide drones alongside them. And that combination, drones and ballistic missiles together, is not random. It is a doctrine. The drones come first, dragging the lower-tier defense systems into constant engagement, burning interceptors on cheaper targets. Then, the ballistic missiles arrive behind them, demanding David's sling and arrow at the same time. You're forcing 2 layers of a defense system to work simultaneously at maximum load. And when you do that at scale, systems that were built to handle threats in sequence start struggling to handle threats in parallel. Wave 19 produced what sources are describing as the highest percentage of successful missile penetrations of the entire conflict. Let that settle. Not Wave 1, not Wave 5, not Wave 10, Wave 19, the 19th time Iran has done this. And this one got through at a higher rate than any wave before it. This is what people misunderstand about missile defense attrition. It doesn't fail like a wall collapsing. It doesn't just fall apart in one dramatic moment. It bends, slowly. Each wave finds slightly more gaps than the last. Each wave tests a defense system that is simultaneously being depleted, recalibrated, and asked to perform under conditions it was never originally designed for. Wave 1 found the fewest gaps. Wave 19 found the most. The trend line is the story, not any single crater. At least 18 Iranian missiles got through Israel's layered missile defense in this wave alone. Iron Dome, Patriot PAC-3, David's Sling, Arrow, the entire architecture that Israel and the United States spent billions building and decades refining. 18 missiles, highest penetration rate of the conflict. And the target was Ben Gurion. Now, here's the part of this story that I don't think most coverage actually stopped to explain properly. Before a single missile landed, before Iran fired anything, something happened at Ben Gurion that tells you everything about where the people with the best intelligence assessment of this situation actually thought this was heading. El Al, Arkia, and Israel, Israel's own commercial airlines, flew their aircraft out of the country. Without passengers, empty planes. They looked at what their analysts were telling them about Iranian intent, ran the risk calculation, and decided the aircraft were safer somewhere else. And then Israel's Wing of Zion, the official state plane, the aircraft that carries the Prime Minister of Israel, departed Ben Gurion and landed in Greece. Think about what it means when a government evacuates its own state aircraft from its own main airport. These are not people making guesses. These are people with access to the most complete intelligence picture available. And their conclusion was that Ben Gurion was too dangerous to leave anything valuable on the ground. They moved the planes. Hours later, the Khorramshahr 4 missiles arrived. They were right. This is what a government does when it genuinely believes the next wave will land somewhere it hasn't landed before. And when those missiles came down, here's what disrupted airport activity, the phrase Iranian officials used echoed in Israeli media, actually looked like on the ground. Planes frozen on the tarmac. Passengers locked inside terminals with nowhere to go. Air traffic controllers staring at radar screens with no safe corridors to offer anyone. Ground crews unable to move. And then the silence. The specific kind of silence that follows something that was supposed to keep working and just stopped. Israel's Home Front Command had already instructed the airport authority to prioritize security over continuity of service. The language in those internal briefings included the phrase mass casualty consequences. Those words do not appear in civilian aviation documents. They appear in military threat assessments, and Israel's own command structure put them right next to the name of its main international airport. So here's where I want you to pause and actually picture this, not as a geopolitical event, as a human situation right now at airports in Athens, Larnaca, Dubai, Doha, Frankfurt, Paris. An estimated 100,000 Israelis and foreign visitors are stranded. Not soldiers, not anyone connected to this conflict militarily. A student who flew out for a semester abroad. A family that booked a vacation 3 months ago. A businessman who flew to a conference. People with return tickets that suddenly mean nothing because the airport those tickets land at is closed under missile fire. One of those people is a man named Oren Moshe. He and his wife, both in their 50s, flew to Athens on Tuesday. Just a vacation. They arrived at Ben Gurion at 8 a.m. on the morning of the strike. The sirens started before they'd even cleared security. Staff rushed them through passport control. They sat in the terminal and waited. And then someone told them the flight was canceled, a couple in their 50s, standing in a Greek airport with boarding passes that are now just paper. And here's what Oren Moshe said when he was interviewed. He said, "We took into account that there could be an attack, so we weren't surprised." They weren't surprised. They flew to Athens knowing, actually building into their planning, the possibility that Iran might strike while they were gone, that the airport might be closed when they tried to come home, that their return ticket might become a question instead of a guarantee. They packed for extra days. They kept their phones charged. They watched the news from a hotel room and waited for a message that still hasn't come. What does it take? What kind of reality does a country have to be living inside? For a couple on a vacation to factor missile strikes into their travel plans as a routine contingency? That's not strategy. That's not geopolitics. That's just Tuesday now. No official statement has been issued on when Ben Gurion reopens. Channel 12 reported the airport was expected to stay closed for 3 to 4 days. The airport authority declined to confirm even that. No timeline, no estimate. Because reopening Ben Gurion doesn't depend on Israeli decisions. It depends on whether the next wave targets it again, whether defenses hold, whether foreign carriers decide the risk calculation makes landing there survivable. Those decisions belong to people in Tehran who are right now preparing Wave 20. Now I need to take you somewhere most coverage mentioned once and then moved past. And it cannot be moved past. Iranian sources, through ISNA, Iran's state news agency, raised the possibility of strikes on Israel's nuclear infrastructure. Specifically, they named Dimona, the Negev Nuclear Research Center. The facility that Israel has never officially confirmed produces weapons-grade material, but which SIPRI estimates is connected to approximately 80 Israeli nuclear warheads. That facility sits in a city of roughly 40,000 people, and Iran just publicly threatened to strike it. I want you to think through what a successful strike on Dimona actually means, not just militarily, though the military dimension alone is extraordinary. Think about the environmental dimension. A 1-ton warhead traveling at hypersonic terminal velocity, hitting a reactor complex in a country where nothing is far from anything, where the distance between a strike zone and a populated area is measured in kilometers, not provinces or states. This isn't a threat being floated by a fringe actor in a chat room. It was issued publicly to a news agency by officials who understand precisely what they are saying and precisely what it would mean. And here's why the distance argument doesn't work as comfort. Iran demonstrated this week that it can reach Ben Gurion, which is closer to Tel Aviv than Dimona is, with missiles that penetrated Israel's defenses at the highest rate of the entire conflict. If the penetration rate is climbing with each wave, and the threat now includes a target with nuclear infrastructure, the margin of acceptable failure in that defense architecture is shrinking towards zero. Now zoom out, because Ben Gurion is not the only artery that's under pressure this week. On March 1st, and the day after hostilities broke out, crude tanker transits through the Strait of Hormuz dropped to 4 vessels. 4. The daily average since January had been 24. Right now, according to Vortexa and Kepler ship tracking data, approximately 300 oil tankers are sitting inside the Strait of Hormuz. They're not moving, not because of mechanical failure or bad weather, because their operators cannot determine whether moving through that corridor is survivable. The IRGC has announced it will control maritime traffic through the strait during wartime. Iranian speedboats are already in the water. Iranian missiles have already struck tankers in the region. Insurance markets have priced the entire area as effectively uninsurable for most carriers. So 300 tankers carrying millions of barrels of oil are parked in a corridor that is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, while Iran fires 1-ton warheads at the airport of the country at the center of this war. The only vessels moving through the strait with any confidence right now are Chinese-owned and Iranian-owned ships, Western carriers, Japanese, Korean, Indian, sitting, waiting, calculating. And when 20% of the world's oil supply is effectively paused inside a war zone, the global economy is not watching this from a safe distance. It is inside the blast radius. Energy markets, supply chains, shipping insurance, fuel costs. None of that is abstract anymore. It is all downstream from what is happening in that 21-mile corridor right now. And nobody knows when it moves again either. So let's put this all together, because the full picture here is something that I don't think has been assembled clearly anywhere yet. Ben Gurion is closed, the gateway to a nation of 9 million people, shut under missile fire, with no official reopening timeline. 100,000 people are stranded across the world with return tickets that mean nothing. Israel's own airlines evacuated their fleets. The state plane is in Greece. The Strait of Hormuz has gone from 24 tankers a day to 4. 300 tankers are sitting in a corridor Iran has announced it controls, and Iran has publicly threatened to strike Dimona, naming the facility, naming the city, publishing the threat through a state news agency. Wave 19 is over. Wave 20 is being planned right now by people who watched Wave 19 perform at the highest penetration rate of the entire conflict and are drawing their conclusions from that data. Oren Moshe is still in Athens. His wife is with him. They have a hotel room and charged phones, and they are watching the news just like you are, waiting for a message that says the airspace is open. That message depends on decisions being made in Tehran, and the people making those decisions are not done. Ben Gurion, the spine of a country, the last door out, closed until further notice. The 19th wave came without warning. So will the 20th.